Mr. Gaurav Sarup, Director ESG Carbon and Social Performance Vedanta Group.
Thank you, sir. And first of all, thank you to IISM. And General Hasnain, your description of what you did at the tunnel rescue was enlightening, right? It's an honor for me to be here, and especially to be present in the room with Chandi Prasad Bhajji. As somebody who's trying to do his bit to protect the environment and to make sure that we conserve our resources, your presence in the room is an inspiration. So thank you so much to have honored us with your insights and your valuable experience. So I was joking earlier that I think we are the only one between lunch, but it's also that we are helping you with your intermittent fasting goals. So I'll try to keep it quick. I'll try to give you some insights into what we are doing in corporate. So a lot of our co-panelists spoke about the need of, the increasing importance of ESG, of sustainability, of being able to understand climate and its associated risks for organizations around the world, right? Vinita ji talked about how they are embedding ESG and sustainability and mindful thinking into the emerging leaders of tomorrow. And what I will try to shed some light on is what are we doing actually practicing this on the field, right? As a practitioner of sustainability, as a practitioner of ESG, what are some of the experiences that we are encountering, knowing that this is not a final conclusion to discussions, right? This is an emerging area, there are emerging risks, and there are emerging responses. A little bit about the company that I'm representing, Vedanta Limited. For those of you who do not know Vedanta, Vedanta is one of the largest natural resources companies in the world. We are in the metals and mining sector, so everything from zinc to lead, silver, iron ore, steel, aluminium, oil and gas, copper. These are all of the metals that we actually mine and produce. It is but given that for any metals and mining company in the world, and indeed this is true for a metals and mining company in India, there is a huge responsibility for us to make sure that our impact on the environment and our impact on people is well understood by the executives of the company, and there is enough action taken to minimize and eliminate that impact, right? There's indeed a lot of good that metals and mining companies bring into the world. And as we transition into the green economy, the renewable economy, the electric economy, the need for metals is only going to increase. So it becomes very, very important for companies such as ours to understand what is the role that we need to play and how do we minimize our impact, right? Now, I think this conference is happening at a very interesting point. COP28 just ended. And one of the realizations, not just in COP28, but this is a realization that has emerged over the last decade, is that there is a very, very close interlinkage between the impacts of climate change and security, right? If you look at any conflict around the world, underlying that conflict is an environmental impact that has led to social disruption. So whether it's Sudan and Darfur, where there is drought, whether it's the immense damage that our neighboring countries of Pakistan and Bangladesh experience year on year, and indeed even in India, the kind of natural disasters that are starting to become more and more frequent and more widespread, all of that is linked to climate change. And as these disruptions increase, it becomes increasingly difficult for the societies to be resilient around it, right? So imagine a disaster that was happening once every 10 years, now starts to happen once every 5. Before you're able to recover from that, you're now faced with another one. So in all of this, what is the kind of thinking that large businesses are putting together, right? Now, I mentioned that we're a metals and mining company, and one of the, because of the nature of the processes that we have to do to extract metal and then process metal, we are hugely, we rely on a lot of energy, and there's a lot of greenhouse gas emissions that we emit. Keeping that in mind, one of the first things that Vedanta has done in the last 3 or 4 years is to announce that we will become a net zero company. Now, it's easier said than done. But what that one announcement has, catapulted the company into is thinking about the many ways, whether it's the adaptation of renewable energy into our energy mix, but more importantly, and from the standpoint of the, the gathering here, it's about how do we adapt to the impacts of climate change. Because when these, one of the things that climate change will do is it will increase the natural disasters that we encounter on a year-to-year basis. And that increases the vulnerability of communities, it increases the vulnerability of how the companies are able to continue to do business, right? Because if you have a flood, for example, in a particular area, your operations are shut. Your communities are suffering. People cannot get to work. So all of these become very, very real business risks. In order to understand this, and in order to see how different locations in Vedanta will start to face different risks, whether it's flooding, whether it's cyclones, whether it's increase in temperatures and drought conditions, whether it's the rise of vector-borne diseases. We undertook a study, and what we found was something pretty shocking. If I look at this entire series of events over the next 20 to 40 years, what we found is that if we do nothing as a company, and if we do nothing as a nation to start to address the impacts of climate change, almost 25% of our overall revenues are at risk, right? And the moment we start to take action, and the moment we start to take measures to, for example, make our plant areas resilient to increasing cyclones, or we do things around improving the drainage system so that flooding risks are decreased, that 25% impact starts to come down to less than 5%, right? Now, that's a study on paper, but what that tells us and what that starts to tell our executives is that this is a threat that active effort needs to go on, right? And this effort is going to be engineering in nature, it's going to be management in nature, and it's going to be stakeholder engagement in nature, right? So all kinds and all dimensions of work will also start to come in. The other thing that we've started to address and really think about is the impact that climate change is going to have on the communities who live around us. Now, largely we are in very, very remote areas of the country, agrarian populations, people reliant on, small-time farmers, people reliant on natural resources for their daily living. Now, if there are natural disasters, obviously that they are going to get impacted. So our corporate social responsibility programs, our CSR programs, which have traditionally focused on education, on improving agricultural yield, on healthcare, we have now started to think about what are the impacts that climate change is going to have on all of those activities, and what is it that we need to do to modify these programs so that the communities also become resilient over time. Now, these are all, like I said, things that are in play. It's a journey that we are taking, but it's something that the company, and not just us, most large companies in India and around the world are recognizing as a critical risk, and it's going to become part of day-to-day decision-making in corporate boardrooms. So I wanted to leave you with that there is, from the corporate side, work that has serious work that's starting to happen here, and there is room for ideas, there's room for innovation and technology and management experts to come in and kind of be part of the journey. So I'll leave it at that. I would be happy to take any questions outside of the panel. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav Sarup. That was absolutely brilliant. I mean, in such a short time that you could put across this entire concern on societal issues leading from climate change. I may just add one thing as a summation at the end, in 30 seconds. Don't lose sight of what is happening in your neighborhood. The Indus River, the kind of calamity it has caused in Pakistan has led to 2.3 million people being evicted last year from their homes, right? The last time this happened was in 1980-81, when you found that many millions of refugees coming out of Afghanistan. And you found what was the effect of that which happened on India's internal security. What I'm saying is everything of climate change has an effect on you somewhere or the other. These are the people who will be without jobs. These are the people who will be on the virtual this thing of extinction actually, and they'll be desperate for anything. Those are the kind of people who can be employed in all kinds of actions against you, hoping to be a $5 trillion, $10 trillion economy, which is what we are slated for. Just remember that. So that brings us to the end of this very interesting discussion. I'm sorry we overshot a little bit, in fact, quite a bit. But at the end of it, I'm sure there are no questions because all the questions can be at the lunch table. Thank you very much.